I have another client that I'm really struggling with. So he is a hairdresser, barber. I don't know. He cuts hair basically. So what I'm trying to say.
I know nothing about that, and I can't answer questions on that specifically. But if we got movement basics,
For sure, man. He is a narrow, I say. He is relatively short, maybe like 5'9" or something like that. And you can see visibly that his right shoulder is much lower than his left. Right. So, as far as I understand, he's on this right oblique axis. And yeah, so he's just, limited toe touch, limited straight leg raise, probably at about, I would say, maybe 35 degrees, something like that. And yeah, I've been like really struggling with him, and it's very hard to get any change. And he's working 4 days a week for about 8 to 10 hours in that position.
oof, yeah, that's tough, man.
Yeah. So as far as that, because I never had anybody who's like that compressed and whose job requires them to kind of be in that position actively throughout the day. So what am I looking at here?
An uphill battle. Well, and the reason why, and that's the tough thing, and because sometimes if you have someone who's got an activity where they're continuing to stress themselves, and it's not like you can say, "Hey, we need to remove any potential contributing factors when it's your livelihood." So and in that case, you just have to temper how long it's going to take, right? But so if you have someone who's that limited, generally what I've been doing is, well, I mean, my bias is that's someone who's a prime candidate for some manual stuff. But if you don't have the capability of doing that, then, well, what you could do is you can do workarounds that utilize foam rollers and things of that nature. So, let's say there's a move that I do that's like a pelvic decompression where you've probably seen this where you push down on the pelvis to try to create A to P expansion. You can rig up something similar by having them lie on a foam roller on top of the iliac crest or sandbags. But if from a movement perspective, this person's probably a prime candidate for some of the segmental rolling stuff, and just moving with as little tension as possible, things like that. So you're probably going to cue him only to nasal breathe because likely when he inhales, it's that. But like some of the upper and lower rolls that I got on my channel, those for this type of person work really well. And if they can't, the thing with them though, I would caution anyone who's doing them is for someone like this, it might be hard to get them to go from full supine to prone. So if that's the case, you want to put like a pillow or a couch cushion to tip them into the roll. That could be one thing. Or another thing that I've done, because I have a gentleman fairly similar situation. He's a wide ISA though, but just squished everywhere. And like anytime we do anything training, like this is a guy who will do step ups and he'll get upper trap pain. So everything. So with that, because he had a recent flare up of back symptoms, I have him sideline because that way you'll still get some A to P expansion. And then you just might have him do just nice, easy shoulder movements, like scapular movements, trying to go as little tension as possible. You could put him on like a foam roller or something, have him roll back and forth that way. Do the same thing hip wise, and just like have the movements be so micro and slow and as little tension as possible that you just have him move in those ranges in the beginning.
Okay. And then for the sideline activities, would you have the hips in external rotation, right? So I think one of the mistakes that I made, I first had his hips at like bent at 90 degrees, but
Mm-hmm.
probably in his case, you would want to be like at about 30 degrees or something like that. So he's kind of stable on his side. He can't
Yeah.
obviously be straight, but about
Yeah.
30 degrees or something like that, right?
Yes, 100%. Yeah, and again, it goes back to the concept of filling the cup, because likely if you're bringing him into that position, he's probably compensating somehow to get there. Which it could be an anterior orientation, so then he's going to get pressure in the hips a lot sooner. Could be that he's trying to create some type of posterior orientation through the spine. There's a lot of different ways that they may cheat. So, and I think this person doing things in offset positions, but like in side lying, that's probably money because at least you're biasing him towards a little bit of rotation in the beginning. So that would be where I would go, Misha, to start. So lots of rolls, low tension activities, nasal breathing. Maybe if you get him sitting and just meditating, like anything to just get him to chill would be a good starting point.
And for people like that, and for like the hockey player as well, really nasal breathing is probably like, that's the other thing I've been trying to do, like still mouth exhales, but it's like really hard. And probably if they're doing it by themselves, they're just going to use the same strategy when they're doing the homework. So it just makes sense, like nasal in and out, no tension at first, obviously.
Yeah, I think that that's a reasonable way to go. And that's something I've been doing a lot more of. And if anything, because the thing that you're trying to sequence with the stack is you want a nice long exhale and the ab wall gets smaller, but then you want to maintain that tension and breathe in without any tension in your neck. And that's just a lot to sequence for someone because it's like, wait, you need me to create tension here, but not here as I'm doing an activity. Well, when you have people who have a loss of relative motion and they can't differentiate certain areas of their body, it inevitably falls into just, well, I'm just going to use tension with everything. So if we can choose a method to have low tension throughout, then at least we've taught them one half of what we want to do systemically, and then we can focus on putting it together in a way that almost restores both relative motion and then relative breathing strategies.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Because that's the mistake that I've just thought about it like yesterday. So these two clients for sure like were very compressed. It should be just nasal breathing at first.
I think that's a good starting point, especially if you're having a hard time. If you see that person who's creating a lot of tension, or when they exhale, they're bearing down almost. I think it's probably a good starting point.